Let's create our first scene by creating a single USD file with Omniverse Create. I suggested to my social media manager maybe I could start these videos with a joke, but he said it's okay because I already do. Hang on a second. Okay, let's build our first stage. To start from a fresh stage, you can just go New Stage, and we've got almost nothing in the stage over on the side here. So what we're going to do is, NVIDIA comes with a number of assets. So under the NVIDIA Assets tab, there's this whole series of assets that you can just use to learn with. So I'm going to pick a common apple tree, and you just drag that and place it up in the stage. And voila, we've got it. Now the orange outline is because it's currently selected. You can hit escape to deselect, and we've got our first tree. If we go over and have a look at the stage window over here, we'll notice that we had our default world prim that was there already, and it's now got a common apple prim. I can expand this, and there is a looks folder, and the looks folder is really of type scope. So it's a scope, and underneath looks, there's a number of materials for the different parts, like the leaves have got a different material than the bark and so forth. And so you can have a look around in them. So the reason it's using a scope, if you remember from a previous episode, is because these materials are not actually objects that directly appear in the scene, so they don't have a position, so you don't need to use an X-form. An X-form trim is used for the root of the tree, however, because you can position it. So if I come over to the side over here, we've got a move tool. We can move it around, or if you can grab the actual arrows, you can move it in one particular dimension, and so you can move that around the scene. You can also grab the rotate tool, which is just underneath the move tool, and we can rotate the tree around to get the best looking angle from it. So let's just drag another tree in. We're going to put it in over to the side a little bit, and we can move along and saying, okay, let's put another tree on the other side. And so we're getting a little bit of a forest together. I may want to rotate it a little bit. If I come down to the scale tool, if I grab it in the middle, I can make it a bit bigger or a bit smaller, just to create a bit more variety between the trees, or just make it a little bit shorter. And so it's pretty quick to start creating a scene from these different, and they give you actually quite a nice selection of different models out of the box, so you can get going immediately just to see what things look like. If we go over now to the properties window, you'll probably find that these trees are all got the, if I select one of the trees, so if I go up here, I've got common apple. Oh, and you may notice that it gives them different names. So for example, the prim path for the second tree was world common apple 01. You can rename this and say my second, helps if I can spell, second tree. And so you can rename these prim paths, and then if you look down in the properties panel, it shows you the path is now /world/ my second tree. If I wanted to turn this into a little forest, you can group selected. It's by default traded an X-form prim, so it means it's got movement. I've got my three, I might call this a grove of trees. And now if I come over and move the move tool, I can move all the trees together because I'm actually moving the parent transform, and it affects all of the objects underneath it. So you can create your own hierarchy as you see fit of objects over in the stage hierarchy. Now another thing we can do then is what happens when we want to save the project. Well, if I come along and select, I'm going to use save as, and now I've got to pick a directory to put it in. Now Omniverse allows you to bookmark folders, and so I've bookmarked my projects folder where I put all my projects. So I can come in here and I can say I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it USD series. Double click, and then I'm going to type in a file name, and we'll call this USD series first stage. We hit save, and that's now saved that off to disk. Okay, well this plane is looking a little bit out of place, so how can we make that look more interesting? So one approach is if we go into materials, we can look down for, or maybe we'll do a search for grass, and it's found a few different grass textures. So I'm going to drag grass cut, which has got this banded sort of effect, and put that onto the plane. So it's looking a little bit better, but it's flat. All I've done is if I come down, there's no height to that, it's just a texture. And so it can look better if we put a real 3D model onto it. So one of the things we can do is if we select the plane, over on the side panel over here with all these other tools, we've also got a tool for painting. What you can then do is if you go into paint mode and select the paint mode over the brush over here, you can just start painting into the scene to create. So these are actually objects going into the scene, which we'll have a look at in a moment, but it looks more realistic than just a flat texture. Okay, we're just creating a little bit more. So now if I come down and I'm just angling the view and I get a little bit closer, maybe I do want to go into the background a little bit, and so paint that out. You just need to decide how far you're going to go into the background. But there we have a first scene, and it's some trees on a grassy field. Cool. Now I may then, but the background's still grey. So what can I do about that? Well, if you go under the Environments tab, there's a number of background images, and these are images effectively put at distance infinity. But if we drag that into the stage, what it will do is it may have to download it, but it puts this image behind everything. If I go back to the stage over here, it's actually updated the environment section, so we've now got our a background image, and we can look around and it just looks a little bit more nicer in the background. Now depending upon what angle you need the shot at and what distance, you've got issues with the coloring of the background. You've got to work through those issues, just pick it out. But what I was just trying to show is fairly quickly you can get a shot up and going with a few trees. I'd probably put some more trees and bushes into this sort of a scene. If I go back to the paint tool, it's keeping all the information about the different objects it's added in. It's all done for me. So it's fairly quick to create a new scene and get up and going. And I really do suggest just getting in there and giving it a try and seeing if you can create some interesting scenes just using the NVIDIA assets collection of different things that are available. Well, that's all for this episode. Next time we're going to look into these concepts in a little bit more depth, but I just wanted to show you how easy it was to get a first scene up and going. Give it a go.